this video here is going to be on the numbers that have been coming out, from the UN about the death toll in Gaza for women, children, men, and the elderly. And recently, the UN changed it for women and children. Many people are going to try to say that they didn't change it. They did change it specifically for women and children. The overall death toll, no, they did not change. The number of deaths that were identified compared to reported, they have changed. And now I'll get into it in a little bit, but let's see what he has to say first.
What do you do if you're Israel and you're being accused of genocide at the International Court of Justice? Being accused of genocide by some of your own country's leading Holocaust historians like Professor Amos Goldberg, being accused of genocide by more than half of Democratic voters in the United States. What do you do? Why you engage in genocide denial, of course. You said...
I wouldn't say it's genocide denial. Genocide denial implies that there's actually a genocide happening and you're just in denial. Israel's not in denial, like I said before. There is no genocide happening in Gaza. Many of these people are blowing things out of proportion and don't understand definitions. But let's continue.
The numbers aren't real. It's all Hamas propaganda, and you insist that you didn't really kill that many Palestinians. Now, per the health ministry in Gaza, which as the media never fails to remind us, is controlled by Hamas. We have all been reporting that over 30,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza, including more than 14,000 children. 2/3 of the victims, women and children. But wait! Last week, the Jerusalem Post, an Israeli newspaper, which earlier in the war claimed a dead Palestinian baby was really a doll and that the Palestinians were faking it, the Jerusalem Post published this piece headlined, UN seemingly halves estimate of Gazan women, children killed. They pointed to this infographic from the UN for Gaza casualties up to May the 6th. Compared to this UN infographic for Gaza casualties up to May the 8th. And so the Israeli PR machine jumped into action. Israel's foreign...
So there should...
Women and children killed in Gaza by 50%. The Israel War Room account on Twitter posted this graphic. The UN quietly admitted Hamas's casualty numbers are fake. All over social media, pro-Israel accounts trumpeted this shocking new revelation. The numbers aren't that high. Hamas lied. The UN was duped. Of course, none of that is true. The UN did not say that Hamas's numbers are fake. They didn't cut the death toll in half.
That is true. They didn't say Hamas's numbers are fake. The death toll for women and children has been cut in half.
Nothing, in fact, really changed. Look at those infographics.
No, there are plenty of things that have changed.
Fix again. Between the 6th of May and the 8th of May, the death toll didn't go down. It went up from 34,735.
Now, here's the thing he's not going to tell you, okay? Look at those two death tolls, okay? Now, if the first one, if you add, okay, so look here, you're going to see 9,500 women, right? 14,500 children. If you add those numbers up and divide it by the total amount of reported casualties, that's going to give you 69%. So they're saying almost 70% of the casualties are women and children. Now, this is before any of them, or before they're all identified, okay? Now, another thing, they're not including the number of child soldiers Hamas has that are killed. Those are just counted as children, okay? That's the first part. Now, when we come over here and we look at the other part, we'll see that 24,686 have actually been identified. This is important because this here, or that extra 10,000 that's not there, are just reports, right? They're not identified, they're just reports. Family members can call in, they can submit forms. People can report this. Just because something is reported does not mean it's true. We've got identification, and the identification, right, is much more verifiable than a report. So let's look at these numbers. Now, and remember, when we go back over here, you did not see any men or women, men or elderly here. It was just women and children. Just women and children. Now that they reported men, the numbers change. And here's what's important. Remember, 70% was women and children when it was unidentified. Now that numbers have been identified, women and children are 52%. Big difference. In addition to that, women and children are about 74% of the population in Gaza. The other 26% is men. So if 74% of women and children in Gaza, or if 74% of the population in Gaza is women and children, and only 52% are casualties, that means they're underrepresenting their share of the population in casualties, meaning they're not being targeted, nor is Israel indiscriminately killing innocent women and children. Again, this does not include child soldiers. And they don't break down the age and gender of the kids dying. Okay? In addition to that, men are 26% of the population, but they're overrepresented. They're overrepresenting their share of the population, which means they are the ones being targeted again because they're the ones who are fighting. Hamas, Islamic Jihad, these are the terrorists that they're fighting. So men are overrepresented in their share of the population again because they're the one fighting. Women and children are underrepresented in their share of the population again because they're not the ones fighting. Okay? But he's not going to tell you that. So a lot of things have changed. The percentage of the percentage of women and children killed from total casualties dropped by about 20%. So when he tells you nothing has changed, yes, a lot of things have changed. Let's continue.
To 34,844. But hey, what's 109 dead Palestinians? Not even worth noticing, right? The only thing that changed in those 2 days is that on May the 6th, the UN provided a number for reported fatalities, over 34,000. And on May the 8th, it provided a number for reported fatalities, again, over 34,000, but also included a new subset of 24,686 identified fatalities. That's it. What they're making a song and dance about.
That's not it. Like I just broke it down before. Before they had actual identification, they were saying women and children were about 70% of the casualties. After it, it's much closer to 50. So they were overrepresenting the women and children by about 35% before they actually had identification. So when he's saying that's it, no, that's not it. There's a big difference, and these percentages are showing us that. So that's pretty much what I have to say about it. The end of the video, I mean, that's the main point I wanted to make throughout this. A lot of people are acting as if nothing has changed. No, something has changed. The percentage of the population of women and children that has been killed has been significantly reduced once people were actually identified. There's no way around it. That's the math. Even if we were, well, I'll leave it at that for now. So just keep that in mind. When they're telling you that nothing has changed, no, things have changed. So that's all I got for today. Y'all have a good one. I will see y'all soon. I'm out.